Ladies and gentlemen of the ton. So we're officially heading toward the release of Bridgerton season 3, and we've already gotten a lot of new material. We've gotten snippets, and as of today, they have released the season 3 official trailer. I also, to prepare, have been recently reading the books concerning Penelope's story, in which I will be doing a review on after this video, but I wanted to discuss something that is on a much deeper level and has to do with Miss Penelope herself. I've been seeing on social media and everywhere else that we are very excited for her and Colin's relationship and their eventual love story. And while I'm extremely happy for them, there seems to be this underlying elephant in the room that either people don't want to talk about, or perhaps they're too scared to talk about, or on the other end, they're extremely rude and abrasive about. Well, being plus size or her weight. And not only that, but her being a plus size leading female character of a romance novel, and how rare that still is. Not to mention the fact that Penelope, in my personal opinion, and the way that Bridgerton is going about this new season, is subverging from the DUFF stereotype. And yet, while she's actively representing something going against the stereotype that we've known in media, I can't help but see the discourse about her and her self-worth, her self-esteem, and when it comes to Colin, their relationship dynamic on a lot of pages and discussion forums. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it. But first, if you don't know who I am, hi, my name is Deborah, student, senior, songwriter, and everything else in between. Welcome back to my channel, where I talk about my favorite TV shows and movies and books, and today we're talking about Bridgerton. Let's start with Penelope herself. So Penelope is truly a complex, multifaceted, amazing woman who I definitely have my fair share of beef with, considering the fact that she was also a catalyst in ruining her friend Eloise's reputation in the show and Miss Thompson's whole life. I cannot fully forget that, but at the same time, I personally like the fact that that has been added to a character to add to her complexity, showing that we as human beings, no matter what we look like, can make decisions that are truly just horrible, but not be horrible people. And yet, despite all that, I cannot help but have empathy for her, knowing how she grew up and the emotional neglect that she suffered at the hands of her mother and the rest of her family. The show, in my personal opinion, is way better at portraying her and her mother, especially her mother as somebody who at least has a decency to pick for her daughters over a man. But in the books, it becomes clear with the extra context that two things are important. First of all, Penelope has been neglected by all the people in her life, besides the Bridgertons, her mother, her sisters, even her maids. But at the same time, despite all the emotional neglect, she still manages to wield such subtle power and diverge from expectations society puts on her. So by starting off with her family in her early childhood, you can see and get more context to who Penelope is. Her mother in the books had never really made an effort to encourage her daughter's self-esteem. Rather, she chose to not even see her as worthy enough compared to her two elder daughters, who are of slender looks and are less shy. Her mother put all of the energy into those two rather than Penelope. In fact, in the books, she deems Penelope rather as someone who would grow old with her and become a spinster and take care of her. Not necessarily looking forward to the fact that she might have a daughter to at least spend the rest of her life with, but rather that she'll have a personal slave to order around at any time while her other two daughters have gotten married. Yeah, it's bad. But Penelope, still despite all of this, is so much more. She's a young woman who has decided to make the best out of her situation when her society has made her into an outcast. She's turned the mirror back onto them and literally has made a profit out of their ignorance towards her. She is a girl boss, and I cannot help but adore that. Well, because I somewhat relate to it. But the truth is that Penelope, by just existing and being the complex woman that she is, beats the stereotype of the DUFF, which I will get into a little bit later. Love or hate her, she is intelligent, witty, smart, and very talented, which is more than you could say about half of the women in the ton. Now, this is not to disparage other women or to bring them down, but it's rather to say that Penelope's intelligence and business acumen and the fact that she's able to hide a whole entire double secret life for so long and negotiate terms is such a big deal that everyone keeps on forgetting. But you see, the thing is, In previous traditional forms of media, and especially towards 2000s and 90s films and TV shows, it was always deemed that once you are overweight and you are plus size and you are bigger, you are not worth fighting for and you are not worth looking at. That is not necessarily true. In fact, that is quite false, to be honest, but that is a lie we have all been fed via media. But that's what makes Bridgerton so great, as it actively goes against the grain in subverting stereotypes. One thing I will note is also the actress that plays Penelope is extremely beautiful. I've been watching Nicola, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, since Dairy Girls, and she is truly an amazing actress. But one thing that people don't really talk about when it comes to her looks, especially in Bridgerton, is her wardrobe and how much of her essence has truly been dimmed for the first 2 seasons. Now, this is of course a small detail that comes from the books, but Penelope's mother used to put her in yellow because she believed that yellow was a happy color. But if you look at Nicola's skin tone and her essence, you can tell that she has more of an ethereal essence, very soft looking. And as a result, bold colors, yellows, reds, and oranges tend to clash against her skin tone rather than amplify her natural beauty, which is why you see in season 3 and also in adjacent with the books, the new wardrobe amplifies her beauty, shows off her features rather than clashes against them, highlighting her beauty even more. Rather than giving us the stereotypical plus size to skinny makeover that we're so used to seeing in media, Bridgerton focuses on highlighting her actual beauty where she is currently now, and focuses on emphasizing her features that have already been there but have been overlooked by other people over time. Therefore, another point going against the grain and going against the stereotype. But we'll talk about the weight stuff a little later in this video. First, let's talk about the DUFF stereotype and how this ties in with everything. So, a few years ago, there was this film that came out called The DUFF. While I'm not gonna talk about the movie's plot or the depths about the DUFF itself, what I will say is that this movie brought the term into mainstream consciousness, a term that plus size women have been talking about for years, being treated as the designated ugly fat friend, which is an ugly stereotype that has continued since time. The Urban Dictionary classifies the DUFF as the designated ugly fat friend, and everyone has one in their group of friends who is the easiest person to talk to. She's not necessarily the most attractive, and well, she is the gateway to getting to the more attractive friends. This stereotype has been perpetuated in media since I was born, at least. I rarely saw any plus size character being represented as a lead in a romance novel. So you can imagine my excitement when I see this actually happening in this year 2024. The reason I bring this up is to categorize the same feeling and stereotype under one name. Because if you search on this YouTube platform by yourself, you can hear multiple women talk about being plus size in their friend groups and being slighted or not feeling good enough around their fellow peers, despite maybe their peers actually being super supportive of them. It's something that continues on as a phenomenon in real life. It's something that I have even felt at certain points. It's something that a lot of women have felt throughout their lives. And at the beginning of the 2 seasons, because we were not focused on Penelope, I was very scared that Bridgerton was going to take that route, because the books kind of do, but the show has luckily done the opposite by first of all making Eloise the type of friend who is beautiful but is also smart and pursues other interests that are not necessarily traditional. By making them a pair of friends that bounce off one another's energies, they have immediately created a subvergence in the stereotype that we're always used to. A lot of the times when you see a bigger woman that is a love interest, her friends can either be competing for the same man, or that the friend is instantly jealous and uses that opportunity to criticize the other one's weight. That is something that happens in a lot of TV shows and films. But by making their conflict and their issues not centered around a man, but rather centered around themselves and their beautiful friendship, they've already put a stop to the beginning of the stereotype, which I absolutely adore. Going deeper into the books, as I've mentioned before, there's a lot of problematic themes, but one of the biggest ones is surrounding Penelope's weight. Penelope and her weight and also her looks are mentioned constantly throughout the books as either being not enough or subpar. And the only source of kindness and warmth she truly has is with the Bridgertons. The show definitely gives Penelope more agency, but knowing that this is supposed to be the origin of her character is truly heartbreaking. One of the biggest problems is that Penelope, because she is bigger than perhaps the average lady in the ton, they constantly compare her not only to her sisters, but they constantly mention how she cannot simply catch the interest of anyone in the ton, which I find extremely hard to believe. Now, I know that she's very shy and she's very timid, especially in the books. I mean, she practically stammers a lot of the time. However, the book makes her seem as if she is this otherworldly creature that is not human, that cannot attract a man, which, if you are a bigger woman in real life, you know for a fact that you can attract men. It is not hard. It is not something difficult to do. So a lot of the times I found it very hard to believe that Penelope could not catch the eye of somebody else in the ton, no matter how shy she is. And I'm glad that season 3 is going to give her an alternative love interest, because I thought that ideal was completely ridiculous. Penelope addresses the fact that she was quite overweight at the beginning, and I think she lost around a few stone. I think that's about 12 kilograms, or I will look at the proper conversion. But basically, the book still mentions that she is still quite curvy despite losing the weight, and that is perfectly normal. And after losing the weight, she did feel a little bit more better in her skin, which is very real. There are a lot of people who lose a lot of weight and don't become stick thin at the same time and still remain curvy. So I'm very also interested to see how this is taking in the show. What bothers me about this is that nobody can compliment Penelope up until Polin comes along, which is, I mean, I do like Polin, especially show Polin even more, but the fact that no one could compliment her, give her some extra self-esteem, motivate her, or just tell her how beautiful she is so disturbing. And the fact that she's only getting proper compliments after Polin finally arrives and tells her that he likes her figure and he likes how full she is also quite disheartening, because you hear it in her speech towards herself. You hear how she, despite having an amazing mind, does not really have much reverence for her self-confidence and for her body. But I do think there is a form of light in this angle. By portraying the fact that a character can lose weight and still be curvy, it also allows you to deal with the issue of low self-esteem. While low self-esteem is also connected to weight, a lot of the times people don't talk about the fact that you can lose weight and still have low self-esteem. And the fact that losing weight might solve your physical problems, but your emotional problems are a whole different ballgame. No matter the weight that she lost, she still didn't feel good about herself. Penelope deserves to feel loved, deserves to feel desired. She is a woman, and that is one of the reasons that we as fans constantly want Polin to appreciate her, because Penelope has never been appreciated in the story. She's always been the quote-unquote insipid wallflower. And especially after his comments from the last season finale, well, no offense, but he better love her. Which leads me into another point considering their relationship dynamic, the idea of pining. So one thing that people have been talking about, and I've also been harping on, and even in real life I've been discussing with my friends, a lot of my real life friends have been saying that he better fall for her and cherish her and love her. And I couldn't help but think of the black cat / golden retriever dynamic, because even though that's a TikTok term, the term still holds true for sentiments that have been echoed through many different years in many different relationship books. It still holds a lot of standing when it comes to general relationships and how we move in relationships today. So the black cat and golden retriever theory basically has been formed on TikTok, but it's the theory that one person in the relationship is a black cat and another is the golden retriever, and the one that is a black cat holds more reverence in the relationship, while the golden retriever is more obsessed with that black cat, and like a golden retriever will stay extremely loyal to that black cat. A lot of people theorize that it is better for a man to be a golden retriever and you as a woman be the black cat. Therefore, just like a golden retriever, he will always look to you, be obsessed with you, and never want to leave you, and have those qualities of a golden retriever. And most importantly, will always cherish you as a woman, rather than it being the other way around, as we have seen time and time again, that in a lot of real life relationships, well, that opposite dynamic doesn't tend to work, and it doesn't tend to favor women, especially plus size women. We've seen that stereotype multiple times in media, where there is a character that is plus size and she has a crush on somebody who's perhaps more socially attractive, and she gets ridiculed a lot of the times by chasing after him or being more forward than he is. We've seen that time and time again. So it is really refreshing to see it the opposite way around, to finally see things change. I'm pretty sure a lot of people want a situation for Penelope to not only feel desired, but also wanted, but also chased after. This leads me to another thing which I was seeing constantly on social media, and especially within a lot of the pages or comments or Reddit forums, that some people, and this is even something echoed within the book. In the book, that is mentioned a lot of the times that people cannot believe that Penelope could catch such a catch as Polin, as if Penelope is not of noble family or noble roots herself. And I know they're not as, of course, well loved as the Bridgertons and of higher social class as the Bridgertons, but they are not commoners. They do have a lot of social standing. They do not work for a reason. And the fact that even in the books, this sentiment is echoed, that how could she possibly catch him instead of him catching her, is so heartbreaking, therefore dehumanizing Penelope as a character. Penelope is a catch. She is beautiful. Of course, being Lady Whistledown puts her in social jeopardy. The fact is, she's got wit. She is a writer. She has created a legacy for herself. And by creating this legacy for herself, she wields the secret power of the whole entire ton in her hands. Even the queen is constantly on edge looking for who Lady Whistledown is. That's something that half or even 3/4 of the ton cannot say for themselves. I hope that the season will be able to explore that. I mean, even in the show, Penelope does have more of a stance in the first and second seasons, because in the book, she doesn't even properly speak full sentences sometimes to certain people, or she even stammers a lot of the times, or rather refuses to speak. But at least in the show, she is able to voice her thoughts with Polin. So I'm excited to see her have more self-confidence, as she deserves, within the ton. And by Bridgerton doing this, definitely beats the stereotype that we have been subjected to, especially as young women, for years within media. So yes, I cannot wait for the pollen to pollinate, so to speak. But I don't know. You guys tell me down in the comments below. I hope to have handled this situation with enough sensitivity and understanding, as I myself completely understand where Penelope is coming from. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of women who can also say that they feel the same. Anyways, tell me how you guys feel about this book down below. I will be coming to you hopefully next week with a book review on the book itself, since I talk about the book a lot. And I can't wait to hear your guys' opinions and for us to have a lovely discussion about this. Please keep it respectful down in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye.